it is time to answer the final question of the season. Who will we call the champion constructor of the world? And the season finale is underway. Good launch off the line for the two McLarens. Car stalling on the grid, dropping down there is Yuki Tsunoda on a crash at turn one. Contact, massive contact. Oscar Piastri making contact with the Red Bull as they flash through. It's Lando Norris with the lead. Then Carlos Sainz up to third goes Pierre Gasly. In fourth goes George Russell. But a dramatic moment as Piastri and Verstappen come together.
Yeah, Max Verstappen, brilliant getaway off the line. Made quick work of Carlos Sainz, and then rather than taking the cautious approach into turn one, he sent it. I don't think that Piastri knew he was coming.
Not sure he did, as we see a battle now. It's one of the Haas. That's Magnussen trying to go by Perez up the inside into six.
And he gets the move done. Brave on the brakes in his final start in Formula One. And round he goes. Perez spins. A wild opening lap of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, so Verstappen's made short work of Sainz, who's a bit tardy, and this is where the surprise comes. He sends it and realises that Oscar has given him a bit of space, but just the momentum of that Red Bull was always going to drift wide, and the contact was definitely made Red Bull to McLaren. And we now know that Verstappen's given a 10-second penalty for this contact.
This was on the first lap, super late braking move from Magnussen, and then the contact between Bottas and Perez is how Perez went round. Perez would then lose drive from the car and park up. Bottas has been penalised with a 10-second time penalty for that moment.
Well, this is on board with Oscar Piastri as he tries to find his way past the Williams.
Oh, big contact, and how did that not rip the front wing off?
Penalty there for Piastri, causing a collision. So his day going from bad to worse with that.
That was a late send from Charles Leclerc, and Kevin Magnussen saw it coming, opened up the steering, got him back on the exit, but that Ferrari is roaring on by, and Charles Leclerc has gone from the back row of the grid up to 7th position as Ferrari continue to fight for this constructors' title. Leclerc will be believing he can quickly clear the Aston Martin, and Fernando Alonso is outside of DRS for Hülkenberg. It means he doesn't get it, but Charles Leclerc did. The Ferrari screams by, and Charles Leclerc has gone from 19th on the grid to 6th position in the Grand Prix. Lando Norris is being told, and is managing his tyres at the moment, as we see Max Verstappen getting to the inside. And it's the same order for the Haas and the Ferrari, but Verstappen gets past the green Aston Martin, and on the exit of the corner the order changes up to 5th place. This is some attacking drive from Charles Leclerc as Hamilton gets past Lawson, and now 3 moves into that corner that could be defining for later on.
This isn't really working out for Leclerc now, being stuck behind Gasly. We saw as he makes the move now down into turn 6, DRS, nothing Gasly can do on those older tires.
The car dropped down, was sent, and the front left was not tight.
Yeah, it didn't look right, certainly when the car hit the ground. And that's kind of where the driver's looking. You're looking a little bit out to the left-hand side, out into the pit lane or the fast lane there, so he would have noticed that right away. Had that been the right front, maybe not. I guess Gasly doesn't have DRS, so it's going to be a little bit easier than what we saw before. And yeah, he doesn't defend. After how many laps, he had to try it around the outside and look at the back of that Alpine. I was surprised he didn't just go for it, but obviously it worked out there.
And hearing that we're cutting to Kevin Magnussen, debris on the circuit. So there's a spin for Kevin Magnussen that we caught late, and a part of his car has gone, and there's a puncher for Valtteri Bottas in what could be his final Grand Prix in Formula One. Lock up for Valtteri Bottas. Oh my word, huge lock up, and contact between the Sauber and the Haas.
Yep, on the inside, yeah, just no front grip. We heard earlier in the Grand Prix, I think it was Lewis Hamilton talking, or was it Max Verstappen saying, just couldn't break into the corners as you get those front tyres not quite working.
Oh, isn't that just great?
Two drivers looking at their last Grand Prix start, to have it end like that is really unfortunate for both.
Ferrari making progress from where they were last year, where Mercedes beat them to the punch. Mercedes was second last year, Ferrari were third. Looks like they're going to upgrade, but not to the position they want to be. Talking of upgrades, Max Verstappen easily by Fernando Alonso, now finds himself recovering up to 8th. Late on the brakes for Lewis Hamilton. He'll be enjoying this feeling. He fights it, getting the power on as he gets past, and he moves up to 6th position, past Nico Hülkenberg. Lap 46 of 58, we're coming to the end of an extraordinary season with 7 different winners.
As the Red Bull easily slides past the Alpine there up into the 6th position.
Might have to wait until he gets to it. Whoa! He lost the air on the front wing, and Piastri gathered it together, getting too close to the back of the vehicle.
Well, every day is a school day, and he'll just have learnt that and banked it away for the future.
And let's see, with the help of DRS, whether he can reverse what happened to him 1 lap ago. No, can't go for the overall speed, but he feels he's got the confidence to run to the outside. Better grip, does he have the room? That's a great way to fire yourself by up into 11th place. And this is an easy pass to break Williams' hearts. Piastri recovers to the points, and Albon's chance of that first point score since Baku disappears as Norris pushes on through turn 13 and 14. Hamilton will take the battle to turn number 9 on the last lap. But this is the moment that McLaren dreamed of. Lando Norris wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. McLaren are world champions of 2024. They win the Constructors' title for the first time since 1998. Around the outside goes Lewis Hamilton, and the left-hand side, he got screened, and he's roared around the outside to take 4th away from George Russell. What a move! In his last drive for Mercedes, he was never going to accept finishing behind his teammate. Carlos Sainz has come home in 2nd, completing the podium and climbing 16 places will be Charles Leclerc, and Lewis Hamilton, up 12, completes his attacking stint with Mercedes. After a decade in the doldrums, a season to remember for one of Formula One's most famous constructors.
We did it, mate. We did it. World champions. Well done. Papaya run, Tom. Incredible. Well done, everyone. So proud of you all. Thank you so much. It's been a special year. Next year's going to be my year too.
84 wins, 78 pole positions, and 153 podiums. A standout stint in Formula One like no other. Hamilton and Mercedes sign off in style.
This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. I promise you good things are worth waiting for. Welcome on in to the Outlap F1 podcast. This is season 6, episode 48. Slightly delayed, but we're going to try to give it to you with the quality as opposed to the timeliness of it. But you've got the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2024 Abu Dhabi GP review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we are freshly back from our little Las Vegas adventure, and we'll leave that there. So Cody, how finds you tonight, and how you doing? Have you recovered yet, sir?
I think I've recovered. I've caught up on sleep. Got on my fingers. So far as I can tell, my liver still works. So yeah, I'd say it was a success. It was a blast. We had a great time, and I won't lie to you, I'm a little fuzzy on some of the details of the race events over the weekend because of our antics. But I did try to get caught back up today. Because I was nodding off when I was watching it live, I'll be honest to you. So
I don't know. Well, I'll do the best to kind of carry you. I don't know how well I'm going to do either, because that Sunday turned out to be from 4:30 wake up to almost 4:30 back to bed. I think I was up for 24 hours straight. So I'm going to do the best I can as well. So if we miss a detail on tonight, folks, just blame Las Vegas, because that's what it does. But we're going to do the best we can to try to recap what was an epic title decider. I did watch the whole thing. I did watch it a second time. So I think I've got most of the details now that I'm in my normal setup here again. But if you have found our show, as always, welcome along. And if you are just finding us for the first time, we're glad you're here, even though this is near the end of the season. But you can find us, as always, Twitter, X. That's where I put most of the stuff we share. But we do also put some stuff up on Instagram when we go places. Discord when we want to talk about things. Don't post so much to Reddit, but we do have an account there. But we're also on YouTube a lot. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of those places. If you do like what you're watching and you enjoy what you're hearing, you can do as the kids do on YouTube and smash that subscribe button. Or you can leave us a like on YouTube as well. Also, a 5-star review on either Apple Podcast or Spotify would definitely help us out a lot to help our content come up a little bit better in search results for those looking for F1 content like this. You can always email the show with anything you'd like to talk about, F1 related or not. Chat now at outlapf1.com takes you there. Outlap F1 Nation, thank you so much for your support all year long. You guys are great. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, who's been awesome all year, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you would like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation and get your name shouted out at the beginning of each broadcast, do us a solid. Looking for our anchor page. If you want to support the show, lend us $1 or give us $1, $5. What does that all do? All just goes back in. We always reinvest it into the show. It enables us to keep this lovely platform that I've been trying to get more and more out of to enhance our audio, and it keeps us current with the technology. So we are greatly appreciative if you'd like to help us do that. Lastly, since we are now into almost mid-December, which is scary, and Christmas is like almost 2 weeks away. Wow. If you're looking for a last-minute gift, you can go to manscaped.com, use our code OUTLAP, and get at least 20% off and free shipping with that code that you can enter at checkout. All right. So, Cody, I'm going to let you go first for headline of the day because mine is a bit of a musical rendition.
Yes, my headline of the day is that Andy can breathe a massive sigh of relief now because McLaren got it done and won the Constructors' Championship for the first time since 1998. It was a little rough getting there at times, especially, as we will get into the beginning of this race, made me think, oh my God, could actually go the other way if Lando can't hold on to it. But he did. And McLaren, first time at the top in over 20 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so here's my best Frank Sinatra impression, speaking of Las Vegas. All right, here we go. For what is a team? What do they got? If not themselves, then they have not to say the things they truly feel, and not the words of those who kneel. The record shows we took the blows and did it our way.
Woo! Nicely done. I'm actually quite impressed. That was pretty good.
I actually practiced. I had that. I was telling Cody, I had that ready for 3 weeks. I've had that in the can ready to go for 3 weeks with those lyrics.
I'm happy you got the chance to do it.
Yes, exactly. I didn't know if I was ever going to actually get there, especially after lap 1. Holy Hannah. We're going to talk about all the detail of it, but it's never easy. These guys never make it easy for you, but good things do come to those who wait and who have patience and who have faith. And we're going to talk about how we finally, at least for McLaren, got this thing across the line, because it was the big prize going into the weekend. Max had wrapped up the Drivers' Championship. There are other constructors' battles that we are definitely going to talk about, but the big story was obviously P1 and P2 in the constructors. McLaren going at it against Ferrari, and the early odds certainly were in the McLaren favor, especially when we got to qualifying, because before even the qualifying happens, we got word Charles Leclerc had to take a 10-place grid penalty for a change of energy store. He doesn't come out in the second practice, or no, it's first practice, for almost like 45 minutes while they were changing it. So apparently they were then debating whether or not they were going to have to do it. It finally failed on them, which meant that he had to take a replacement, which meant that he has to take the 10-place grid penalty. So going into qualifying, this is now hanging over their head. But as we will start with that qualifying. All right, so going out in P20, the Esteban Ocon replacement driver of Jack Doohan did not have the world's greatest qualifying, but it was tough to get up to speed. P19 was Franco Colapinto in the Williams. P18, another shocker of qualifying here for a guy who goes so well around this track. Did not expect to see Lewis Hamilton in P18 in the Mercedes. Wow. P17 was Zhao Guanyu. P16, Alex Albon. P15 was Kevin Magnussen. P14, this is the other thing. It got worse for Charles Leclerc because he only made it into P14 after a disaster in Q2. P13 was Lance Stroll. P12 was Liam Lawson. P11 was Yuki Tsunoda. The top 10 from 10 to 1, Sergio Perez does make it to Q3, albeit just barely, but he starts off in P10. P9 was Valtteri Bottas. Kick Sauber, late season form. Look at that. P8, Fernando Alonso. P7, George Russell. P6, more late season form, Pierre Gasly. Here we are again. P5 was Max Verstappen. P4, more late season form for you, Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas. Bring in the goods. P3, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, definitely trying to keep their constructors' hopes alive at this point. But in P2 and P1, it was an all McLaren front row early. Oscar Piastri in P2 and in P1 with a lap time of 1:22.595. Lando Norris in the McLaren. All right. So a bit of a mixed up qualifying grid here is what we ended up with, but at least the two McLarens with the advantage early. Cody, big thoughts?
Yeah, it looked like a really good start for McLaren after qualifying, locking out the front row. All I was thinking was, gosh, they just have to not run into each other at the beginning of the race, and this will be smooth sailing for them. It was not as smooth sailing for everyone else in qualifying. Let's see here. Lewis Hamilton had a little bit of bad luck when Kevin Magnussen was trying to get out of the racing line to not impede Lewis on his flying lap. He ended up hitting a bollard that then went underneath Lewis Hamilton's car and pretty much ruined his lap. So Hamilton had some bad luck out of that. Max Verstappen almost looked like he was going to spin out during one of his flying laps coming around to the start-finish line. He got really loose, looked like he might spin around, but kept his foot in and managed to bring it over the start-finish line, which at the time was for pole position, which was pretty impressive. He later got knocked down quite a few pegs. But yeah, it was really awesome to see Nico Hulkenberg up on the second row in front of Max Verstappen. It was fantastic effort from him. Looked like Haas was not going to go down without a fight in their battle for P6 in the Constructors' Championship. All around a pretty exciting qualifying session.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear the Haas's decided that if they were going to dominate one sector of Abu Dhabi, it was going to be the straight. So they, I think, kicked off whatever downforce they possibly could and went with a lower rear wing, and that gave them a pretty nice advantage down that straight, down that very long straight. So where they were suffering was in the first and third sectors, but they were making up for it and then some with some really nice, impressive lap times through that second sector. McLaren, who'd had a very good practice, all the three practice sessions, they looked really, really good. Field came back to them a bit here in qualifying, obviously, but they were still managed to hold it. So I was feeling at this point very good. Leclerc was going to take that 10-place penalty from 14th. He would actually only start in 19th because Franco Colapinto would start from the pit lane. So I mean, it looked. I was seeing headlines saying that it was going to take a miracle for Ferrari to potentially take this away. And as soon as I read that, I just go, oh no, why do you say that? Because y'all know a miracle damn near showed up on the first lap. So we will flip the script over into Sunday. And just before we do that, but I want to talk a little bit about Lewis Hamilton. Talk about unlucky. And I don't know why the FIA thought a good idea was to put a bollard there. Like, that's not a usual corner where there's usually an issue, but it's there. And K-Mag is doing the best he can to try to get his rear end out of everybody's way. He inadvertently hits it. It goes underneath Lewis's car. And basically the same thing that happened to Max Verstappen happened to Lewis, but much worse. It happened to Max in Miami. Why do we need these things on the track? Do we not? Do we really need them? Is it something that maybe we should look at? Just a thought. I don't like to see people's races or qualifying sessions or whatever it is ruined by something that might not even have to be there. There ought to be a better way to mark "Don't go here," or just give them track limit strikes like you do all the time. But anyway, rant over. But I thought that was just really unfortunate for Lewis there, but it would get better for him. So moving into Sunday, we'll have to talk first about the back markers. And if this is the last race for one Sergio Perez in the Red Bull Honda racing powertrains, it did not go well. He gets no laps. He gets basically 8 corners in and gets the dreaded DNF after a spin out on the first lap. The other non-classified finishers were Franco Colapinto in the Williams, who was a bit of an unlucky thing for him. He got caught up in the Oscar Piastri mess that happens on lap 1 when Piastri was trying to jump the virtual safety car, but try to time the virtual safety car, and he just didn't have the same reaction, and then he got hit from behind, and that messed up the rear of his car, which forced Williams to retire it, which is probably the best thing that Williams could have done, is they finally get to the end of the year. So, he does not get any points in his last race. He went out as well. And the third non-classified finisher was Valtteri Bottas, who just had another unfortunate incident where he was trying to defend from Kevin Magnussen, who was coming hard on the outside. He kicks over to the inside, tried everything he possibly could to probably stop his car, and he locks up his tires, and the car goes sliding, and he slid into K-Mag and took a whole bunch of body work off of his own car, and then took a bunch of body work off of K-Mag's car. So that ends his Sauber career, and on which he picked up a 5-place grid penalty that he may never, ever serve. So, that's one of the weird ironies of the sport that sometimes we love. We have some weird stuff happen. But P17, the classified finishers, even though he didn't finish because he went out on the very last lap, that was Liam Lawson. Talk about a heart attack moment for me when I was trying to figure out where the hell the yellow flag was. P16 was Kevin Magnussen. P15 was Jack Dewitt in the Alpine, recovering a little bit there. P14 was Lance Stroll. And P13 was Zhao Guanyu in the other Kick Sauber. So no additional points for them. I imagine we're going to talk our little talk about Sergio Perez here. So what's your thought on the back markers?
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not entirely sure Sergio Perez ending up out of this race was entirely his fault. He did get spun around, cutting across Valtteri Bottas, and Bottas did get a 10-second penalty for that incident, which, after looking at the incident again, you kind of wonder, I don't know how much he really deserved that. It's just kind of like too many people trying to go into the same corner. But Perez goes around. He's out of the race. If it does end up being his last race, which it's looking more and more like it's going to be, it's not a good way to go out. I think a lot of people are going to remember Sergio Perez for his time at Red Bull, which has been super great. I mean, he's got a couple wins to show for it, but especially more recently, it's been very poor performances consistently. And it's too bad that will be probably what he's remembered for, because before coming to Red Bull, he was very successful at Racing Point for many years. Got his first win there when nobody thought he was maybe get a win during his career. Then he ended up coming back as a Red Bull driver by pretty much almost like a miracle. And it's too bad that will probably be, the Red Bull time will be what he's remembered for. It does sound like Red Bull is trying to negotiate getting him out of his contract. It sounds like Sergio Perez wants to get paid, which I don't blame him. Red Bull apparently didn't have good enough clauses to release him, which you would think with how he was performing when they did this contract that they would have had something performance related in there where if you don't do this good, we're just going to kick you out and you're not going to get paid. Yeah, it didn't happen that way. So he's going to probably get paid to not drive for Red Bull.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely where this has definitely gone to. The tone even in Qatar from Christian Horner was definitely like, this is now on Sergio to make the decision. And Sergio's tried to be defiant, so much as even stating, even before the race on Sunday, I will be driving next year for Red Bull, making that statement, Whether or not that means he's driving some sort of a rally car at a show run for Red Bull is another story. But it definitely does look like this is probably his last turn of a wheel in an F1 car. It just seems to be waiting on the announcement at this point. I mean, we're recording Wednesday night of the week after the race ended and still haven't seen anything official. So whether or not that may come after the FIA Gala, which will be later on this weekend, we'll have to see. There has been a lot of driver, not F1 necessarily related, but, minor series, F2, F3, kind of getting all their lineups situated. So there's been some movement, but it doesn't look like this is going anywhere yet, but we'll continue to monitor it. Obviously, if we do see something, we'll do our best to bring it to you. But for right now, he's still in the seat. Although it does seem, the hot rumor seems to be it's going to go to Liam Lawson. And because apparently even in Free Practice 1, David Croft kind of let it slip on the international broadcast that Isaac Hadjar had told him that he would be in the V car. So if Liam Lawson is no longer in the V car, where does Liam Lawson go? The only place it could go would be to Red Bull, which means that Sergio would have to be out. So again, that seems to be the hot take at the moment as to where it's going to be. It's more than it's plausible. It's very possible that could happen, but that until it's official, can't say it for sure, but that's probably what we're going to see. Any other thoughts here in the back markers?
Oh, let's see here. Liam Lawson had some trouble during the race because he got a penalty for his car being released in an unsafe manner. He came into the pits. One of his wheels was not properly fixed to the car. Car dropped down, and wheel ended up being loose. So, but they released him from the pits anyway. He had to go around and get it fixed, and he ended up taking a penalty for being released that way.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that they didn't make him stop. Normally in that situation, I thought the rule was if you sensed a tire wasn't on, you were almost required to stop somewhere once you realized it. But he obviously gets a penalty. It's not on his fault. It was on the team for not doing their job right. But yeah, kind of an odd situation. We'll have to kind of see if that gets addressed further either down the line or anything else. But yeah, I mean, Kevin Magnussen, who actually did get this race will go down as the last one where the fastest lap could have gotten a point, will not get a point for any fastest lap because that went to Kevin Magnussen, who put on a set of soft tires with about 20 laps to go, set a flyer of a fast lap, and nobody could else even come close to it. So that was the end of that competition. It was not material in the constructors at the end anyway, as it turned out. Not the world's greatest debut for Jack Doohan. I think he was just more about getting experience in the car. And Lance and Zhao, don't want to beat them up. I mean, Zhao probably had a better weekend than Valtteri did, but P13 was the best they could do. All right, so turning now into the midfield, P12 saw Yuki Tsunoda. P11 was Alex Albon. P10 was Oscar Piastri. We will talk about the adventure he had going up and down the field in this race. P9 was Fernando Alonso. P8, Nico Hulkenberg. P7, damn, man, he closes the show. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. That secures Alpine sixth place in the constructors. P6 was Max Verstappen. We will talk about how he ended up there. P5 was George Russell. And P4, you want to talk about a Sunday rally. He's only outdone by one other guy, though. But Lewis Hamilton and the Mercedes had himself a day on Sunday. You got to give him credit for that. Cody, big thoughts here in the midfield.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton showing his best in this race, coming back from a poor qualifying that we discussed was a little outside of his control, but he rallied back to just outside of the podium. It was wrapped up with a bow when he passed his teammate George Russell on the last lap, which kind of, to me, felt a little bit of a statement from him being like, yeah, I'm still in charge here. And it was good to see that strong performance from him. Let's see here. Max Verstappen, not on the podium, had to fight back a little bit himself because I mean I can touch on the first bit of the Oscar Piastri kerfuffle here, and then you can follow up with trouble he got into later. But going into the first turn on lap 1, it looked like McLarens were just gonna, go into turn 1 and hold station and not fight with each other, and then Max comes roaring up the inside on a really good start, tries to get underneath Oscar Piastri. It looked like it was maybe a bit overdone because he goes flying in. He can't get the car turned. He's understeering, and he clips Oscar Piastri, and both of them spin out. And when I saw that happen, I had a little bit of a heart attack on your behalf. I was like, oh God, I can hear Drew shrieking from here.
I didn't shriek. I think I was holding a pen, and I think I just chucked it in the air, like, of course. Because I'll tell you what I saw. I mean, so I had, because we were obviously, I was not home, but I had my setup kind of ready to go, and I had Oscar's on board kind of over here, and Lando's on board up here, and the timing here. And what I usually do with lap 1 is I'll wait through the first few corners before I look at the timing, because the timing is ahead of usually the onboards. If the disaster is going to happen, I want to see it. So of course I'm watching Lando first, and Lando gets off, and he's got the good start, and he's in clear air, and I'm like, oh, all right, we're good. And then I turn my head, and I look at the timing, and I just, in time to watch Piastri drop. And I go, that's got to be a transponder. That's got to be a transponder, because he's still running, and oh, there it was. And that was when the pen that I had, I think, went flying across the room, where I just kind of went, what the actual hell had just happened? And then you saw the replay of it, and ambitious is probably a nice way to call that move on behalf of one Max Verstappen. He did receive a 10-second penalty for it. I thought that was appropriate. I know Max didn't, but there is no universe in the world where he makes that corner, and he should not have tried. It was a move he never should have really tried. All he has to do is kind of cut in behind, either try to draft Piastri maybe in the next couple turns where the Red Bull is better on cornering, and he might be able to get him anyway before they get to the long straight. But that's not what ended up happening, and they both went for a spin.
Yeah, Max definitely went for the good luck everybody else approach to the start of the race. I mean, he's got the driver's championship sealed in. He doesn't really care too much, although it does not look good, especially if that had affected the championship in any way. I'm sure he would have received a ton of flack for that. But yeah, I totally agree. The 10-second penalty there was warranted. As it so happens, Oscar Piastri himself had a 10-second penalty just a little bit later, trying to fight his way back through the field when he rear-ended, I believe that was...
it was Colapinto.
Oh, he rear-ended Colapinto. Okay, yeah. And lucky he didn't damage his car too badly there.
He got actually pretty lucky from even the Verstappen incident, because he didn't have a lot of damage. He said he felt a vibration, so which would have made me think that he was going to come in box on the first lap, which would have definitely thrown him way down even further behind. So he's in P20, but he's not really all that far back from the field. He's only maybe about 5 seconds or so adrift. And it's at that point, I'm watching him try to, especially in that hairpin before the long straight, he's literally trying to recalibrate his steering, figure out what the car is and isn't doing. And then he said he got feedback from the team that said, no, pressures looked okay, wing looked okay, all the data that they could see coming off the car was okay. So he started to get more confident, and by the end of the lap, he'd start to catch back up to the end of the field. Now, we have other incidents that happened later on in that lap. We had the Sergio Perez gets spun around and goes out, and that's ultimately what caused the virtual safety car to come out. So now he's kind of right there at the back. I mean, he's back up to P19 because Perez is gone, and he's trying to set up to basically try to pull out of the line and try to jump Colapinto and a whole bunch of other people to try to do what Charles Leclerc did do. Oh, by the way, talk about miracles happening for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc goes from P19 on the grid to P8 by the end of lap 1. hello, how you doing there? With just some great driving, and literally it looked like, the Max Verstappen in Brazil thing. That was what Leclerc was doing, especially through that one kink there. So great on him for doing that. But, and then when the virtual safety car ended, Oscar has made it one of his staples is he's got that kind of good overtaking instinct, and he just missed it. I mean, if it's 100th of a second later, he pulls it off, and it's a great move, and he just didn't do it. And then he realized too late. He tried to slam on the brakes, and he does touch the rear of Colapinto's car. It is, by letter of the law, a 10-second penalty. I mean, it's what it was. So I wasn't surprised, but it meant that when he would claw himself back up through the field, because he had still a pretty good car under him, albeit a bit damaged, he would have to fall back. So I think by the first pit stop, he made it up to P8, and then he fell all the way back to like P15, served the penalty, because it ended up being a 2-stop race. So that was the one thing that kind of saved him, was the consensus going into this race was it was going to be a 1-stopper. Obviously, with Piastri now hitting the back of Colapinto, they pitted him. They wanted to maybe potentially check the wing. They send him back out after just changing the tires, but now he's already made the first stop. Now some of the rest of the field, about maybe 20 laps in, starts to make a first stop, which kind of brought him back into play, because if they don't do that, I don't know if he ever gets there. Now he has to serve the penalty, which he does on the second stop, which FOM put out this weird graphic that just confused the hell out of David Croft when it said unserved penalty. Well, he didn't get the penalty assessed till after the first pit stop, so there's nothing he did wrong. It just didn't happen. So he serves the penalty, goes back out. Had a hard time actually trying to get past Fernando Alonso, who ended up kind of shadowing him all the way home. But he does manage to come home in P10 at the end of the day, getting past Alex Albon late in order to secure that. It doesn't be a material point, but Piastri had a very adventurous race. Let's put it that way.
Yes, he did, but a bit of a fun fact that came out of it is since he did rally back and finished this race on the lead lap, so he finished all the laps of the race, longest season in Formula One, and Oscar Piastri completed every lap of it, which was a bit of an undertaking. He did not have the best luck at times during the season, but I still managed to do every lap of it, which I found to be pretty cool.
Yeah, he joins, I forget who else was on that list, but I saw that stat.
It's not a long list.
No, and it's some bigwigs of the sport, too, that are on that. So he joins some pretty elite company in being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Other good things that came out of the midfield here, Pierre Gasly and Nico Hülkenberg having pretty good races, finishing well in the points. Pierre Gasly outdoing Hülkenberg, meaning that Alpine did secure that 6th place in the Constructors' Championship. So, I mean, if you had told me even many races halfway into the season that Alpine was going to somehow come back and finish 6th place in Constructors, I would not have believed you. And most of it, I think, falls on Gasly's shoulders. Yes, Ocon did have that amazing P2 finish in Brazil. But especially over the last few races, it's been Gasly dragging that car to where it needs to be to secure that spot. So really good performance from both of them. It was really good to see even Haas fighting for P6 in the Constructors throughout most of the season. They did not get there, but P7 for them, I would say, is after some of the recent seasons that they've had, is nothing to be disappointed with.
No, I mean it was going to be a very good bounce back year for Haas anyway. And then Brazil happened, and you really can't fault anything that Haas did or didn't do in that race. Alpine just got incredibly
it was a freak thing.
Lucky at the right place, right time type of thing. So I do think if you're a Haas fan, you should be happy with what you got out of this season. It's a much better season than you thought you were going to have going into it. I think their arrow is still pointed up. I mean, Ayo Korematsu has come in, has kind of reinvigorated that team, and they've kind of gone back to doing the classic Haas stuff of, taking opportunities when they come, waiting for them, and then trying to pounce on them. This is a great result for them. It's just unfortunately not enough to get back the gap that Alpine got after that Brazil race. And Gasly, to his credit, did him one better and, extends that lead just enough to make P6 happen for them. And Brazil does turn out to be a $30 million race for Alpine in the money that they're going to get. And that's huge for them. At one point, I know we were saying, for God's sakes, make the pain stop at Alpine. And this is hard to watch. And we felt bad. And now we don't have to do that. So bad should be off the table for that team. Hopefully they can make some further developments to that car and at least get themselves firmly into the midfield and try to set themselves up for some real success coming into the 2026 rags. All right. And before we leave the midfield, I do have to just make a comment on Lewis Hamilton. I thought that was one of his, other than maybe the Great Britain drive, I thought this was like his second best drive of the whole season for him. Come back from P18 after that unfortunate incident with the bollard, which in my opinion should never have been there, but it was. And whether or not it's a big thing that he passes George on the last lap, I thought it was cool that they put him on the medium tire. They let him do that and let him go after George. And it was like a 10 lap coming down, and you're watching the gap slowly get down 8 seconds, 6 seconds, 4 seconds, 2 seconds. And it was clean racing. That's Mercedes' credo. They let him race, and Lewis came out ahead, and good for him for it. He does get the send off that we did get to see him do the donuts. So I was happy about that. I'm glad that he stuck it out through this season. It's a much better look for him now going into the Ferrari with hopefully some positive momentum behind him. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. Testing will be so much fun to see how he adapts to a much different car. All right. So turning to the podium. And yeah, miracles almost do happen, Ferrari fans. Don't think this wasn't as close as it was, because it was. Charles Leclerc from P19 to P3 on the day. A hell of a drive. Hanging it out on a one-stop. And actually getting those tires home, or a very early two-stop, was damn impressive there. Carlos Sainz, who's out of that Ferrari seat now, going to Williams, but he gave it everything he possibly could. And he's a classy guy, and I wish it wasn't the case that he was having to leave an elite team, but it just is. P2, only 5.8 seconds off the lead. And you can say what you want about him. He didn't win the drivers, but when the pressure was on here, Lando brought the goods today for this one. Lando Norris and the McLaren securing the win and, bringing it home. And I thought probably the best thing was on his radio, he sounded like he was just on a Sunday drive. Really no problem. He was comfortable in the car and, did what he needed to do to get the job done. There was one moment of real drama, which came on the pit stop, the last pit stop, where, Carlos Sainz was flying around trying to use up every bit of his tire to try to do a bit of an undercut. And Lando gets out, and they get the gap down to like 1.8 seconds. And then they literally told him, you brought the tire in, go get him. 4 purple laps later, it's a 4-second gap again. So, it did get close. Let's be honest. This was not a dominant victory, but got it done when he needed to. So, woo!
Yeah, Lando stayed in control for the whole race, under pressure. Pretty much after Piastri spinning out on lap 1, it was pretty much on Lando to get the job done, and he did. He succeeded under pressure. I don't think he really ever fell out of the lead, other than maybe like cycling through pit stops, if that. And yeah, he just managed the tires very well throughout the race. The gap never got huge, like we saw him do in was that the Netherlands? But kept it comfortable, which I think was what allowed him to conserve the tires. For that matter, Ferrari did everything that they needed to do too. I think they were going to need some amount of McLaren misfortune in order to win the championship in this race. And they did get that on lap 1 with Oscar Piastri, and they did everything they needed to do. They got all the way up. I mean, Leclerc battled all the way back from the back of the field, literally, up to the podium. And Sainz had a very successful race as well, being on the other spot on the podium. They did everything they could do. If Lando had faltered at all, if he had, some kind of failure with the car or made a mistake, it would have been Ferrari's championship, because they were there to take it. If he faltered, it just didn't happen. So I think both teams did everything they could do in this race, which made it really awesome. They were both gunning for it as best as they possibly could, and it just ended up that McLaren was able to hold on to it, and Lando had the best day.
Yeah, I mean, it turned into an hour and 26 minutes of me after the first lap not wanting to move. I don't think I moved much, because I'm like, I don't want anything bad to happen. And why I do that, I don't know. It's just my weird superstition. Not that anything that I'm doing is affecting something 5,000 miles away, but still, it's just kind of my weird sports brain kicks in. But the second I saw race finished come up on the timing, that was a moment. Let's put it that way. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But I did a little hooping and hollering, and I'll admit I even got emotional for a minute there, especially when I start to see, it's just some of the human moments, the human reaction. It's why you watch. It's why I'm into this sport. It was a moment, and let's hope that there's more in the future.
Now, how did you feel waiting for the results to become official?
Oh, I knew it was okay when they came out for the photo, because there would have been some sort of an issue if they didn't get the cars back out of scrutineering. And once they had the cars back, I'm like, okay, well, they gave it back, which meant that they didn't have to have any sort of run into the stewards to go verify a measurement or some whatever like that. And had it come out like that, like everybody goes home and we have some sort of technical infringement that happens, that would have been bad. That would have been so bad, and probably would have been appealed, and we might not know who the constructors champion is even today at this point. But none of that even came up. As soon as I saw the scrutineers report, and I just read all are in conformity, okay, that's it.
It's good. It's in the book.
Yeah, they're in the book. And then in the last document that comes out is the final point standings. As soon as I saw that, and I will say this set of stewards decided that they weren't going to stick around for dinner, because whatever they did, they got all their documents up like right away this time, which was refreshing. So I think they all wanted to go home too. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it turns out that, first championship since 1998. Or 1997, since Mika Hakkinen, David Coulthard, championship number 9. I did make an impulse buy, and I will have a commemorative poster that I will put up somewhere in the background here after I can get it framed, but that's not going to come for a while. I tried to buy some of the merch, and the merch sold out in 10 minutes.
Now that I can believe.
Like, there was a hoodie and there was a t-shirt that I wanted to try to grab, and that was gone. Literally while it was in my cart. I couldn't put my credit card in fast enough. Whoop, goodbye. But anyway, good stuff. Good stuff. So, all right. So we will leave. Any other thoughts on this race before we call it?
Just that it was an exciting race. Being a Red Bull fan, they didn't look good in this race, so I'm hoping they pull something together for the start of next year. They got time, and they got more wind tunnel time now too. So a lot more, in fact, now that they're all the way down in third in the constructors. But it was good to see. Like I said, it was good to see McLaren and Red Bull succeeding in this race. I would have been disappointed if McLaren didn't win it, because things would have had to go really wrong. So I'm happy that they did hold on to it. And I'm happy for your sake that they held on to it.
Well, I mean, after the first lap, I'm literally thinking, there was so many things that would have had to happen in order for them to blow this. And it almost happened, Leclerc has to storm through the field, and one of the two has to fall way to the back. and then have something else happen to them. And then, so Oscar gets the penalty. I'm like, well, of course, that this is just like ticking all of the boxes. And the next thing you know, Leclerc is up there and on pace. And, he just, they had to keep him out there. I think he would have preferred to have boxed the second time to get another set of tires. And I think they went with their infamous plan C, which now that I remember from Monza, which is just, they're just going to hang him out there and wait till the tires to go. So, I mean, it was the right choice. I mean, then he come home, that was probably the best he was going to be able to get, but I knew he wasn't going to be a threat. And the only threat that I thought could happen was maybe Carlos Sainz could get up there, but it seemed like he was not as good in his tires as Lando was. And at that point, now the only thing you're worried about is some sort of a freak mechanical, thing. The Liam Lawson yellow flag on the last lap. If you want to have a heart attack, and it was right where Lando was too. So like, even if you looked at the sector thing on the bottom of the timing that tells you where the yellow flag is, I'm like, and Lando's right there. And there's this point in the timing on the straight where there's this pause. And it happened throughout the entire weekend. And I'm like, come on, light the mini sector up. I just want to see yellow. Don't need to see green or purple. Okay, he's still moving. As soon as that happened, I was okay. But other than that, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't see the Lewis George thing because I was kind of not concentrating on that, but I did see it afterwards. And talk about a chef's kiss pass on the last lap. Mm-hmm. So good stuff. A very entertaining, I think, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend, which sometimes you don't necessarily get it here. All right. So we will put a pin in this race. We'll come back. We will tell you what are the final driver and constructor standings. There is a change in the driver top 10 that we have to talk about. We did not see coming, but he came flying in there, and now he's in the top 10. We'll then take a look at where the final points in the constructors fell out. Then we'll open it up to your thoughts on the weekend, the fan email segment. We've got our regulars, and we've got a couple other folks in here as well. We'll hand out some awards. We didn't do predictions, so we won't talk about that. And if you guys really want to find out who won the season thing, I will go tabulate it, but did not have time to do that tonight, unfortunately. But come on back. We'll get into all of that good stuff, and we'll kind of put a recap on the season as a whole. Maybe instead of predictions, we'll do our favorite moments of the year as kind of a replacement for that. So we'll get into all that, and then we'll see what this offseason, which isn't going to be that long. It's going to go by fast. So we'll be talking about testing before you know it. So come on back. We'll get into all of it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back in. This is Season 6, Episode 48. Just shy of the magical 50 mark, but that's okay. We've done enough recordings this year. It's the 2024 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix review show, and you've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up talking about, for at least for me, a very tense watch of an Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So now it is time to find out where the final point standings shake out. Cody, we've got our top 10 drivers. You take the drivers. I will handle the teams, as always.
All right. So the final driver standings for the 2024 Formula One season are Max Verstappen finishing in first place and claiming the Drivers' Championship for Red Bull. He finishes with 437 points. Lando Norris finishes a career-best second in the driver standings for McLaren with 374 points. Charles Leclerc has a very respectable third place in the standings for Ferrari, just a little bit behind Lando at 356 points. Oscar Piastri, also considering how new of a driver Oscar Piastri really is in Formula One, a very respectable P4 in the driver standings for McLaren at 292 points. Carlos Sainz wrapping up the top 5 for Ferrari, his last season for Ferrari at this point, which is pretty sad considering how well he did. He finishes the season with 290 points, so just 2 points behind Oscar Piastri. George Russell does have the better points position out of the 2 Mercedes drivers this season. He finishes in 6th place at 245 points, but he was not that far ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton finishes in 7th at 223 points in his last season driving for Mercedes. Sergio Perez, hopefully, I'm imagining he wants to leave this season behind and go on to a better season next year. We are suspecting that is not going to happen, but we will just have to wait and see because nothing is concrete yet. But Sergio Perez finishes in 8th place in the driver's standings for Red Bull at 152 points. Fernando Alonso really didn't get a whole lot of attention this season, considering Aston Martin was not as strong a performer as they were last year. But he did still come in 9th place for Aston Martin in the driver's standings with 70 points. And then the highly contested P10 in the driver's standings gets usurped at the end by Pierre Gasly, who claimed 10th place in the drivers for Alpine right at the end with 42 points.
Yeah, a solitary point above P11 Nico Hülkenberg, who just misses out and finishes 1 place lower in the race and 1 place lower in the drivers. So yeah, that P10 was, we saw more change through that position, I think, than any other place in the top 10 this season. As for the constructors, as you all know now, it has been clinched. McLaren Mercedes take the Constructors' Championship with a total of, wow, talk about this point total, 666 points. Thank you, Oscar Piastri, for making it the devil's number. P2 is Ferrari. Their valiant rally at the end falls just short. They come home with 652 points. P3 is Red Bull Racing Powertrains. They accumulate 589 points on the season. P4 is Mercedes. They've been there. We knew that was going to be where they were going to finish, but a very respectable at the end, 468 points for them. P5 was Aston Martin. They finished the season on 94 points, so they've been in P5 for a very long time. P6, as we mentioned before, that's where Alpine Renault clinches that spot in the constructors. Big, $30 million up from where they thought they were going to be in prize money. So they come home with 65 points ahead of P7 Haas, who definitely have had a better season than the last couple for them. So they're back to some respectability as well. And they come home with 58 points scored on the season. P8 is the V-Carb team, who look to be changing their name, I think, to something called Racing Bulls next year. Oh, Lord, we're going to have fun with that one. But that team comes home with 46 points. P9, if there is the team that I am just happy that they're done and they can recoup and rest, Williams Mercedes. They got through all these races at the end through, guts and glory, man. But sadly, not a huge point haul for them in the last chunk of the season due to all the mechanical stuff. But they come home with 17 points scored on the season. And P10, everybody gets points. Kick Sauber Ferrari on the strength of Joe Granul's 8th place in Qatar. Comes home in P10 with 4 points. All right. So you have heard our takes on what you saw. I tried to put you in my shoes, my very nervous shoes, watching this race. Time to turn it over to your comments on the Abu Dhabi weekend and the season as a whole. It's the fan email segment. We have our normals. I've put this in the order of which they were received. So you can see who's going to be in the first position. It's very important. He wanted to make sure he got it in. My computer lit up, and I think it was 6:58 or something a.m. local time when I read it. So Mr. Formula comes home in the last race in pole position, just in front of Rachel Fleming. So Cody, it's your time to shine, man. What do we got here?
All right. So as you said, our first email comes from The Formula, and he says, very happy to see a close constructors battle all the way to the end. While I feel for the Tifosi, I still bleed orange and am ecstatic for McLaren. What a year. Enjoy your winter break, guys. Thanks for your hard work on the podcast and show. It's great to have an F1 podcast local-ish to me. If this message made it to you before Rachel's, make sure she knows she's slower. Message has been received, and thank you very much for the compliments. We really do enjoy doing the show, and it is great to have you guys contributing regularly to the show. It's good to know that we have regular fans that watch this all the time, so it makes it worth doing.
Yeah, and then they miss us when we don't post for a little minute, so
yeah,
which is also cool. So thank you very much, Mr. Formula. You did win the pole position award. Yeah, I mean, we'll do our best to kind of enjoy the winter break, but there's always news that happens. We will get at some point, I know we will hit the off season with a Jacques Villeneuve said piece, and we'll know that it's really the off season. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, obviously, very, very stoked that McLaren brought it home. But I give full respect and full marks to the Ferrari guys. I thought they did this. They were a classy opponent, man. And they did everything that they could have done to try to lower that gap. Since those Coda upgrades that they brought, that's been either the first best or the second best car pretty much all the way home. And where McLaren had the issues is that they had some racetracks where they were just off. Las Vegas being one of them. Just the car just wasn't there. So this got a lot closer than I would have liked. But again, that's because Ferrari did the job and did the things that they needed to do to make it close. So vast respect.
Yep. And we will enjoy the winter break. I will miss Formula One. However, it's going to fly by really quick. I've got some big stuff that's going to keep me really busy, especially over the next few weeks.
You've got no problem with that.
Nope. I will be a busy beaver. The month of December and early January is going to just fly by. And then it's going to be just around the corner. So, I am looking forward to everything that's coming up. Thank you. The Formula. Do you have something else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. Next email comes in from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, so that was the best Abu Dhabi Grand Prix we have seen in a very long time, unless you are a Sauber or Red Bull fan. Yeah, just a little bit on that note. So I suppose I'll have to start with Sauber Watch. Joe, barring the rolling start, did okay. I completely forgot about that. And finished his Formula One career with an okay result. However, Bottas had an appalling day and really did ruin his own race. Looks like he took Perez out and then hit K-Mag. Shame his season finishes with 0 points. If it is Perez's last race, then it wasn't really his fault he was out of the race, but it is his fault that he is probably out of the seat. 4 podiums and cost Red Bull the Constructors' Championship. She goes on to say, a massive well done to Lando and McLaren for winning the Constructors' Championship. It was tight when Max and Oscar collided. Sorry, Cody, but it was Max's fault. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. No, no disagreement there. And Charles came through the field, but Lando held his nerve. Let's go for 2025. As for this season, a much more enjoyable Formula One season. So many good drives for Max, Lando, Oscar, Charles, Carlos, George, Pierre, Nico, and to a degree, Lewis Hamilton, who had a very good final race for Mercedes. No shout-outs to Perez and Stroll, not deserved at all. Man, it's brutal. Yes, many good things to say here. Yeah, I totally agree with you that was Max's fault going into the first turn. He definitely deserved the penalty that he received. I did. Well, all right. So as a Max fan, I really did enjoy the last season a lot because it was really interesting to see just how dominant he was. And I was very curious to see just how far he could take it, which was to historical lengths. But overall, yes, on like an individual race basis and like the intrigue for who was actually going to win, because, we knew who was going to win like a third of the way through the championship last year. yes, it was much more enjoyable. You had many more drivers and teams that could actually fight for wins. You had Red Bull not being on top for the second 2/3 of the season. You saw, big. I feel like this season really was like a season of like feel good moments, because you had, let's see here, you had Lando getting his first win, and then many more. You had Oscar Piastri getting his first win, and then his first real win that we actually enjoyed.
Yes.
You had Charles Leclerc getting his home win at the Monaco Grand Prix, which was really awesome to see. You had Lewis Hamilton getting, what was it, his 9th British Grand Prix victory, seemingly out of nowhere. That was a really good feel one. Carlos Sainz got a win right after coming back from having his appendix removed. Like, yeah, the list just goes on and on between through all the really good feel good moments that came out of the season. So I thought it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree on the enjoyment factor of the season. I'll take the McLaren hat off for a minute, but you put that to the side. Just even if I wanted to look at this as a neutral, the fact that you could have any weekend and have your pick of 7 drivers realistically, and you really didn't know, like, okay, if Mercedes nailed the setup, it could be George and Lewis doing it, like you saw in Spa. And unfortunately, George had the DQ, but that was Mercedes back to being dominant. And you had the British Grand Prix where any one of 4 teams at any one point could have taken control of that race and could have gone and won it. And Mercedes just did the strategy better than anybody else at the end. And Lewis was freaking Lewis at that track, where he's just one with that circuit, and, pulled off an amazing victory there. You had, even in the craziness of Austria and Max and Lando taking each other out, you had, there's George Russell. And, go watch the move that Oscar Piastri makes again on Carlos Sainz. That is my overtake of the year right there, bar none, because he's hanging it out. He's on the outside. There, for all practical purposes, he should have wrecked. He should have got spun out and gone into the kitty litter. But the fact that he managed to hold his nerve and pull that off was just amazing. Other great moments, obviously Lando's freak win in Miami, which was a race none of us saw coming. To suddenly turn out and have it be there in the United States in a race where he finished P17 last year. So to see that turn around and to watch and go, holy Hannah, here come the papaya team. So the epic battle between Leclerc and Piastri in Baku, lap after lap after lap, with Leclerc in DRS and Piastri able to fight it off for so long, was also, things that you just never saw. And it was just, it just kept giving it to you the whole year. So this has turned into a really special year for a lot of reasons. And it's just the massive fun factor. And the best thing is, we reset it all to 0. We keep the same rules, and we think we got some really good stuff headed into next year. So, cinch it up and strap it down. I'm good to go for next season, man. Woo!
Yeah, next season's going to be, at least I'm hoping, hopefully I'm not jinxing it here. I have to knock on wood. But next year it's going to be hopefully more the same, but we're not going to have Max out to a massive driver's lead after the first day of the season. So, next year could be a banger.
And that's going to change. Like, I think it's going to be interesting if, from a Max fan's perspective, how does he change his driving style now that he doesn't have that buffer? Does he have to be a slightly more conservative and not go for every gap, because it's a massive thing if he gets a penalty now, when he doesn't have the 50, 60, 70 point lead that he had before? He can afford to do that now.
I don't know. Max is kind of I feel like a cornered animal when it gets tough. He's like, I feel like the harder it is for him to win, the more reckless he's going to be. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Or he does what he does in Brazil, which he just overcomes all of it.
Yeah, that is true.
Which is entirely on the cards too.
Yep, and I do agree. No shout outs deserved for Perez and Stroll.
And so there is a standing offer. Just so you know, Cody, I did put out a feeler. If we can ever try to get Rachel on as maybe we do a guest show or something. I know there's a massive time difference between here and the UK, but I'd love just to have her on, just to kind of get her perspective, how she came to find us, and just to chat F1 with her. We appreciate so much her recaps. They're always spot on. She's always a great contributor. All of these people here are awesome. So stand by. We may be able to do something in the near future, but we'll definitely try to see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, I would very much enjoy that. Thank you again, Rachel, for your email. Our next one comes in from Dave Doherty, and he says, we ride the highs and lows in a season, but I'm grateful that you have shown pure talent in your work. You two motivated me to be a successful F1 fan, and I hope next year will be good. And we thank you for that very much. But I just wanted to add something else. I'm absolutely emotionally proud of Lewis Hamilton. That takes a lot of guts to say I'm done with Mercedes. As you know, I'm a Mercedes AMG Petronas F1 fan, and I'll continue that in the new year, but it does feel like a marriage breaking up with Lewis and Mercedes divorce. It feels strange. And yeah, I think it does feel strange. When I joined the Formula One fandom, that was in the midst of Mercedes like extreme dominance. Like first race that I went to with Andy was the 2016 U.S. Grand Prix. So of course the one that Lewis didn't win. But yeah, pretty much like after that point is when I really started to become a more dedicated Formula One fan, and he just kept winning. And so it does feel very strange now that he is going to be leaving Mercedes when like pretty much the only Lewis Hamilton that I've ever really known has been the dominant force at Mercedes. But those red those red suits are pretty awesome looking, and I'm sure he will fit right in there. And I look forward to, he had some pretty good battles with George Russell over the last several seasons. I look forward to him having some really good battles with Charles Leclerc, who was another amazing driver. I think they'll really challenge each other, to be the best they can be. And at least for the moment, it looks like he is moving into a stronger car that might actually be competing for championships next year. So I'm sure that's what he wanted. It is going to be really fun to watch.
Oh yeah, I mean that is going to be, I think, off-season story number one. You want to watch where all the cameras are going to be at the first test. They're going to be outside that Ferrari garage, or garage, or however you say it in English.
Garage.
Yes, garage. Because that's where everybody is going to want to take a shot of that first epic drive out of the Bahrain pit lane and onto the track to see what Lewis has in that car. And the first couple laps at speed are going to be appointment television. And I hopefully will be awake and alert to see all of that as it happens live. Because that's always a challenge given what time of the morning that happens. But yeah, so I mean, and if it is competitive and if he is in the mix for a driver's world championship and he wins, like I said before, it's him time in Maranello. They will be singing songs in his honor forever, because that's another team that's had a long time between championship sips. And, it's a team that expects to win. And you've got, the other side of it being Max. I think you're right when you say he's going to act like a rabid dog. You got to rip that crap out of him. And it's the only way that that's going to happen. But does now his aggressive style without that point buffer become an issue for him? So it's so much the dynamic of what we're going to see, because Max is not going to give it up. Lewis is going to be coming, and Lando wants revenge for this season now too. So that you add that factor, and Oscar's going to be hungry for stuff. And oh yeah, there's George Russell, and maybe Kimi Antonelli is the next big thing, and we just haven't seen it yet. So who knows? There is so many good things going into next season. So I'm all about getting already amped up for it. We do have a winter break. It'll go by fast. And then, we're going to do that big combined team reveal in late February in London. And we'll see what a odd, weird thing that's going to be.
Yeah, I'm hoping it won't be as weird and odd as I currently think it might be. But
I think it's your Las Vegas opening ceremony times 2.
that could be.
I think that's the level of what we're gonna get. That's my bet.
If we actually see like anything remotely real about the cars, I'll be happy. No, I guess not.
No,
It'll just be a nice fancy livery review.
You're gonna see the show cars that they all bought. They're gonna have nice fancy paint jobs, and they're not gonna show you jack. Because why would they? That's why the first day of testing is going to be as epic as it is, because that's when the real car gets shown for the first time. And then you get your pictures with the arrow, and oh, look, that's a suspension, and that's a rear wing, and that's a tire, in case you didn't know.
Yep. And then it's going to be really competitive for one more season, and then it's all going to get tossed up again. So.
Well, who knows? Maybe everybody, because they didn't have the other side of 2026, and I know we've always kind of said, look, we think the general consensus is somebody's going to get it right, somebody's going to get it wrong, and you're going to see dominance until everybody catches up again. What we haven't ever had with respect to a rule change was a rule change in a cost cap era that is now really fully effective. And you also had it to where nobody could really start on this until January of next year. So it's as close to a blank slate as you really could have. So is there a possibility that you might see one of these midfield teams, Alpine, who are well-funded, come up with something interesting and maybe come out to an early lead? Who knows? In 2014, we saw Williams being the second quickest car for half that season before everybody kind of caught up to them too. So there are opportunities. There's nothing to say that these teams who have been all trying to figure out the structure can't maintain some sort of good competition between that. Now, obviously, that's what I'm hoping for. That's the positive end. The negative end is we get somebody like a Mercedes who's 2 seconds faster than everybody else, and they're just gone.
Yeah. Now, I would be happy with that for one season if it ended up being, like Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso that ended up being like 2 seconds faster than everyone else. I would enjoy that for exactly one season. Maybe two for Alonso's sake. But but after that, I would hope it would even out.
Yeah.
All right.
But I just want to also say shout out to Dave Doherty, who on social media spreads our content, does a great job. He's actually started doing some of his own recaps. I don't know if we've inspired him to do that, but I have seen it on Facebook. I think they're really good. Keep doing it, Dave. That's what my advice would be to anybody. Put yourself out there and see what sticks. So well done.
Yes, very good. Thank you very much for your email and your compliments, Dave. Our last email comes in from John. Yes, that one. And he says, "Epic day. Finally, the curse has been broken. Welcome back to the front, Papaya. Also, hell of a drive from Lewis. Glad to see a smile back on his face. Excellent work to you two gentlemen, bringing the best F1 coverage, making me proud. Looking forward to your 2025 coverage." Oh, thank you guys very, very much.
I guess that means we got a renewal. That's our contract renewed.
Yep, there we go. Contract renewed.
The boss has blessed us.
I do have to add in, though, that John said, P.S. Max sucks ass, and I strongly disagree with that. I'm sure Max is, got a little tear running down his face after his fourth consecutive drivers' championship. But yes, thank you very much, John. It was a great drive from Lewis. It was good to see him have a good one in his last drive with Mercedes. As we said, it's been over 20 years since McLaren had their last constructor championship, and 1 year less than that since they had their drivers' championship. So maybe that's a sign that Lando's going to get it next year.
There was a lot of, what was the stat? I saw something about like Lewis Hamilton's last race for McLaren. A McLaren driver won the race because it was Jenson Button. Sergio Perez wrecked out. There was like all these similarities. And that's Lewis's last race in Mercedes. A British driver won for McLaren in Lando. Sergio Perez crashed out. And something, there was all this other stuff that just lined up. So, it all comes full circle. Comes full circle.
History
and it was a hell of a drive from Lewis. That was vintage Lewis. And, the hope is that that's what we see in the red colors next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that we will. I'm sure he's going to be very excited about this new, step in his career. And I imagine that this is where he's going to finish his career. So, however many years left that's going to be, he's going to be in all likelihood finishing up at Ferrari. Yeah, I'm sure he's very excited to make his new home there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you everybody again for an amazing year of commenting and having us respond to your guys' stuff. You guys are literally the reason why we continue to do this, because if it wasn't for the interaction, like if there was nobody listening and nobody cared, we might just go away. But because you guys tell us that you enjoy it and you give us the great feedback, we'll continue to try to push this to somewhere. I don't know sometimes where it goes, but we'll try to push it somewhere. And we were able to do some really cool stuff this year with your guys' support, like the Giles Richards interview, which was something I'd never really done.
Yeah.
I never really had an opportunity to sit down with a real dude in the F1 paddock and just chat with him for a bit. I am going to try to reach out to him to see if we can't try to find him one more time before he goes away for Christmas. But we'll see what we can do now that we have a friend over there. All right. I guess it's time to hand out our awards. And usually, we usually start with the rubbish, and that's usually where I like to try to yell at the F1 world for a minute. And I'm not really going to yell because I'm kind of done yelling for the season. But the only thing that kind of annoyed me was the whole George Max spat that kind of happened in the beginning part of the weekend. George kind of went full George on Max there. And to me, it still feels like it's really over nothing. Do I agree with some of what George said? Yes. Do I think it was appropriate to say it at this point, given what he had done to him? No, it's not ready for that. If Max does something that is actually dangerous to George next year, those comments like that would be warranted. I just felt like this was trying to set groundwork for next season. And it just didn't come off very well. So I guess this one goes out to George for doing a full George when it wasn't really warranted.
Yeah, but you don't crave that drama between the drivers. Like, I'm being completely sarcastic. Like, I don't really like it myself, but
yeah,
it's fun sometimes. But yeah, I felt like this was maybe like a little over the top. And here at the end of the season, we all just want to have a good time and watch McLaren win the championship. We don't want to hear about George and Max duking it out behind closed doors. My rubbish award actually goes to Max for that overly aggressive move into turn one on lap one. Pretty much took Piastri out of the race competitively, and that ended up making the championship really come down right to the wire. I mean, with the way things that played out, had Lando and Carlos been in swapped positions, it would have been different. So if it ended up being that move on Piastri and spinning him out had changed the fortunes of the championship, I think a lot of people would have been really, really pissed at Max. So
yeah, then I would have had a different rubbish. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Max, I know that your championship is done, but maybe don't ruin other people's championships if you can help it, please.
Now, I will say, in slight defense of Max, he did go up to Oscar Piastri after the race and did apologize to him. So that, I think, was a good move. I think he realized it kind of right after the race. Again, it's the duet. Part of the thing that makes Max Verstappen, I think, so fascinating is the duality of personality. There's Max out of the car, where I think he's actually got a very dry, interesting sense of humor and is probably a nice guy from all indications that I can see. And he does charity work and he does some great stuff. But then there's the Max in the car who could just be an asshole. Let's just be honest about it. That's just kind of what he does. But I've never seen it quite that much 180 degrees with the driver before.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we will move into our analysis paralysis. This one was really hard because, it was a two-stop strategy race. Most people did it. Some people hung out on a one-stop trying to score some points. Leclerc managed to do it, and it was successful, so that does not a candidate there. But I am going to give it to Ferrari because I thought once it came out that they knew they were being really risky with that energy store and waiting to change it, it almost seems like, well, boy, why didn't you just change it before at another track? and it ended up not mattering. So I said, it almost bit them until it didn't, because Leclerc just did an awesome job overcoming it. So it's not really an analysis paralysis, but I don't know what else to really put here. So that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. For once, we had a weekend that was more or less free from blatant analysis blunders from the teams, from the FIA.
I was just going to say,
how many times do we get to say that? Where it's like,
that's the first
FIA
time
was pretty good.
We said it, and it's not even real here.
Yeah. If I had to split hairs, I guess you could say that I thought that the 10-second penalty that Bottas got was maybe not really strongly deserved, but as you were telling me before, your opinion on it was that it seems to be the direction that the FIA is going with penalties now, at least for the moment, where they're trying to follow more the letter of the law, even on lap one, and handing out penalties under that guidance. So I guess he did hit Perez. He did spin him out, and he did kind of go up inside the last second. So I guess, but no, I feel like the penalty might have been a little harsh. So I guess if I'm splitting hairs, that's my analysis paralysis.
Yeah. It's one of those where I read it and I go, okay, fine, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my attitude on it, but
it's the man's last race, though.
I know.
To do it.
No, but he now joins the dubious distinction of joining Logan Sargent as having penalties under the FIA that may never ever get served.
No.
So, we'll just kind of leave that there. But all right, moving into Dark Horse. This is where we have like real issues here. So I'm going to give this one to Pierre Gasly, because he single-handedly closed that show for Alpine to secure them P6 in the constructors, for a team that, like I said before, we had put out for God's sakes, make the pain stop. It seemed painful. And I'm trying to tell Alpine fans, it's not really this bad. And then it was really that bad. To watch them turn it around, and whether, I like who they've brought in or I don't, I can't argue with results. What he's doing is working. So good on you, Pierre Gasly. Good on you, Alpine, and good on you, Alpine management.
I gotta wonder if that person you're talking about rhymes with Blavio Friatore.
Yeah, maybe.
I also am going to give the Dark Horse award to Pierre Gasly. Yes, he was a huge contributor to, I would say, the greater contributor to them getting into the P6 for the constructors. And not only that, with where he finished in this race, he eked his way into the top 10 for the drivers, which is, no small feat comparing the mountains that Alpine had to climb to even, start scoring points earlier in the season. So the fact that he made it into the top 10 for drivers is really something.
Yep. All right, driver of the day, Cody. Who you got here? This one could be interesting. We've got some different nominees here.
I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc on this one. Mostly because he was the part for Ferrari that made it look like that they didn't have a chance, in my opinion, with the deleted lap time and the 10-place grid penalty that made him start from the back. That combined with the front row lockout for McLaren made it really look like it was over and done with. And he still managed to make it come right down to the wire by gaining 16 places throughout the Grand Prix, making it onto the podium. 11 of those overtakes were on that first lap alone. He made it look easy. He fought tooth and nail to try to get that championship for Ferrari if they could get it, and it just didn't quite make it. But I got to appreciate how hard he fought for it.
And he genuinely seemed really bummed that he couldn't get it done either. And you almost wanted to go, dude, there was nothing else you could have done.
Yeah, you did it all.
You did everything you needed to do. That was not on you that didn't happen. But so I've got several nominees. One, obviously, Charles Leclerc for storming through the field. And then Lewis for also storming through the field and then putting that last lap pass on Russell. And that is just a beautiful move. And I just say chef's kiss stuff right there. And got a shout out for Lando Norris as well here for getting it done under pressure. That pit stop was a under pressure pit stop because Carlos Sainz was coming, and they got it done in 2 seconds. So team as well. You don't do it just by yourself. You got to have a team with you. But for all of the above, I thought all those three were the stealers of the show this weekend for everybody. So yeah, multiple drivers of the day here. And because we did not do predictions, we're going to instead, Cody, what was if you have one, what would you say was your moment of the 2024 season? And there's been lots of them. We know that.
Oh man. Maybe I might have to pick a couple here. I would say for me, especially as a Max fan, my moment of the 2024 season was Max's storming drive through the field in the Brazilian Grand Prix that more or less, ended any hope of Lando catching up to him in the Drivers' Championship. I just thought that drive was like so masterfully done. The fact that he came from so far back and managed to finish so far ahead of everyone else in like really treacherous conditions that everyone else was having a hard time with. I think we're going to look back on that race and see it as like a moment of his masterful driving. So I would say that's probably my moment of the 2024 season.
Yeah, I think that it's going to end up on his Mount Rushmore of moments for sure, because that was doing things in a race car that you just didn't think anybody could do. And the other supposedly 19 best drivers on the grid could not do what he did that day. So that's the talent and the guy who is inside Max Verstappen when he decides to bring that guy out. I don't know how you beat that. And that's what the conundrum is for everybody else. I've got a couple. I mean, obviously for me, the freak one was the Miami victory for Lando. That did not see that one coming. You didn't even want to watch the race live. And I was kind of like, I guess I'm going to watch this thing because it's, Miami, and none of us were super excited about it. And then, you all turns on a safety car and blam, a race broke out of nowhere. And, when Lando finally drives away from Max after the restart, after he didn't have a great restart, but he manages to get to that third corner, and then the grip takes over, and you watch him just expound that gap out. And, I'm counting down the minutes, and I'm like, all right, this race is going to be over in 20 minutes. Race is going to be over in 10 minutes. Race is going to be over in 4 minutes.
It was so good to see after that race too, how much support Lando got for getting the win from like other drivers and other teams. Like everyone was legitimately happy for him to have gotten that first win after a lot of people were giving him a hard time wondering if he was ever going to get a win. And then he got that one with a really good drive and ended up getting a few more out of the season too. Yeah. So he definitely has what it takes.
And I hope that that's what he does understand. And look, I mean, there's still flaws that he's got to work on his game. And I think those are all apparent. We've talked about it. There's certain things I think the team can do to make themselves a little bit more aggressive moving forward and to have more trust in the guys that they put out there, both in Lando and Oscar, that they're not going to screw it up, even when it's close. Look at what Lando did in Qatar in kind of defiance of the team that to me told them, look, trust me, it's good. I got you, type of thing. So, lots of good moments. I would also say my second one would be probably Lewis winning in Great Britain, just as a lifelong Lewis guy as well. That from, again, kind of coming out of nowhere, which was the team you didn't see coming, and then blam, there they were. And just, taking advantage of those really, really tricky conditions and making the right calls at the right time and executing better than everybody else did at the end of that race. And so that was a heck of a moment for that. And it was nice to see Lewis get the win, get the send off, get to watch Bono go get in there one more time, which is appropriate and very, very good. And so, it's been an amazing year. Really, really, really has. And Cody has been a hell of a lot of fun doing this with you week in, week out. I appreciate you more than you know. And, you're going to go off and do something really special in the next couple weeks, and it's killing me that I can't join you, but we're going to have lots of pictures, and we're going to recap it on the back end. So,
it's going to be great.
Yep. So best of luck to you in the very near future, and hope you have safe travels and come back, and so we can continue to share more moments like this together. So, and to everybody else, this has been a slice. We're gonna do the Christmas thing. But then we're going to get ready for testing and stuff next year. We're going to have that car reveal show, which we may do a special broadcast for to recap and make fun of and whatever else. We'll give it the treatment, one way or another, because we won't have anything to talk about for a little bit. But to everybody else out there, thank you so much for, if you made it this long, thank you so much. It's always bittersweet to get to the end of a season, to know that you don't really have too much that we're going to talk about, but hey, January 1 and a fresh race calendar is always just a little bit away. I'm actually looking forward to, 24 Hours of Daytona is always the first thing that I kind of get into. And then, that just leads into NASCAR. And then you watch the Daytona 500 stuff. And then you get into the F1 teams getting ready. And this next season, like we said before, is got all the ingredients to really be a special one. So, we hope you will enjoy it with us. Thank you again to everybody who's listened. We love you. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.